Hi everybody, and welcome back to Murder at Bedtime. If you are a regular watcher or listener, you know by now that I think you are all awesome. And if this is your first time, I hope I can persuade you to return. This is a 10 to 15 minute true crime bedtime story. No frills, no waffle. All the waffle, if there is any, is all at the end. So just switch me off after the story or listen on to my gobbledygook. And with that, let's crack on. July the 28th, 1865 would go down in history as the day the last man was hanged publicly in Scotland, with the execution of a man who has been dubbed the Human Crocodile, which I've got to be truthful is a bit over the top title for a poisoner, but more referred to the likeness to a crocodile shedding tears while it kills its prey rather than the way he committed the crimes. So the man himself, Dr Edward William Pritchard, born in Southsea in Hampshire, England in 1825. After finishing school, he became a surgeon's apprentice and joined the Navy, where he served on many ships, including the late Lord Nelson's flagship HMS Victory, which was coming to the end of its service. In 1846, he was given a commission to Naval Assistant Surgeon, and in 1850, while on shore leave, he met Mary Jane Taylor, the daughter of a retired prosperous Edinburgh silk merchant, at an officers' ball. She, for some reason, was staying in Portsmouth for a short holiday with her uncle, who was also an assistant surgeon in the Navy, and they instantly fell in love and were married later that year. He still had 1 year to finish in the Navy, which he did, then he resigned his commission. And his rich father-in-law set him up in a doctor's practice in Yorkshire. He and his wife lived in Hummonby, a place I have lovely memories of, as I have of nearby Bridlington, which some of his practice also served. Now, during the Pritchards' time in Yorkshire, they had 5 children, 3 daughters and 2 sons. But there were rumours going around that Dr Pritchard was, let's say, a bit too friendly with his female patients. Also, he was getting himself into great debt. So he packed his family off to start afresh in Glasgow. After a brief stint living with his in-laws in Edinburgh, the Pritchard family moved into their new house in Berkeley Terrace, and once again Dr Pritchard opened a practice and tried to start moving up the social ladder. But whereas he managed to climb the ladder his local lodge of Freemasons, his peers did not take to this egocentric man, who kept a pocket full of postcards in his jacket pocket with a picture of himself on at all times, so that he could hand them out to people on the street whom he thought worthy enough to have one. Now, please take a look at my Instagram page to see a picture of the good doctor if you are listening to this on the podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, you can see what a looker this guy is. Now, imagine him with a top knot, lycra shorts and socks with sandals, and you have your heartthrob of today. There were also whispers about his qualifications and his boasts of graduating from King's College in London. It did eventually come out that his diploma was actually bought in Germany. Anyway, while living in Berkeley Terrace in 1863, a policeman saw smoke coming out of a second-storey window at the house. After banging on the door, eventually Dr Pritchard did answer it, and oblivious to the situation, after being informed of the smoke, he ran upstairs shouting the name of the family's 25-year-old maid, Elizabeth. Trying the door, they found it locked, but when the door was eventually forced open, and presumably the fire extinguished, the body of 25-year-old Elizabeth McGrain, I've seen 2 surnames in my research, was laying curled up on her bed. She had made no attempt to escape her room, and it looked, to say the least, dodgy. as though maybe she had been unconscious before the fire started. However, the prosecutor fiscal, I think a position only held in Scotland, and I believe it's the same as our CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, is in England, who decide if there is enough evidence to take a suspected crime to court. Now, they decided that there wasn't. The fire was blamed on a faulty gas jet igniting while Elizabeth had been reading in bed. But the Glasgow rumour mill was up and running. They thought it very convenient that the fire happened while his wife and children were away, and soon it was well speculated that naughty Dr Pritchard was up to his old tricks, had probably got the young maid pregnant and done away with her. Anyway, the family decided to move again, this time to 22 Royal Crescent, where they took on a new maid, 15-year-old Mary MacLeod from Islay. The very questionably handsome, please look at the picture, and charming doctor, as always believing he is the dog's bollocks when it comes to women, or 15-year-old girls come to that, set his sights on the pretty teenager, and Mary would not have had much say in the matter, whether she liked the doctor or not, as she would have been in a precarious position. She was only young, probably in her first job, and if she didn't comply to his demands, she could have been dismissed with no references and no future, and been out on the street, destitute. What it does seem, however, was that she was agreeable to the affair, and the doctor was besotted with her. She even told the cook that the doctor had told her she would be the lady of the house when his wife was gone. So it may come as no surprise that not too long after this comment, in December 1864, the present lady of the house started to feel a bit out of sorts. She was suffering from headaches, dizziness, sickness, stomach pain, and becoming very weak. She became so bad that her mother, Mrs. Jane Taylor, travelled from Edinburgh to take care of her daughter herself. But she soon became ill herself with the same symptoms, and on the 25th of February, Jane Taylor died. Mr. Taylor, when he arrived in Glasgow, asked the doctor who had been treating her, a neighbour of the Pritchards, Dr. James Patterson, to sign the death certificate, and he refused. So Pritchard signed it himself, giving the cause of death as paralysis and apoplexy. On the 18th of March 1865, sadly, Mary Pritchard died, and once again, after Dr. Patterson refused to sign the death certificate, Pritchard signed it himself, as the cause of death being gastric fever. He then accompanied his dead wife's body down to Edinburgh to be interred in the family tomb with her recently deceased mother in Grange Cemetery. He made a big deal at the Taylor house of requesting the coffin be opened so he could kiss his wife on the lips for the last time, as he wept copiously over her. But he was in for a shock when he arrived back in Glasgow, because the prosecutor fiscal had received an anonymous letter, thought to be in most circles, from Dr. Patterson, 2 days previously, pointing to a funny business about these two deaths. The bodies of the two women were exhumed and found that the Bailey's sedative solution, in other words opium, that they were both taking to relieve their pain, had been laced with antimony. The trial at the Edinburgh High Court took 4 days, and the jury took just 1 hour to find Dr. Pritchard guilty of the murder of his wife and mother-in-law. And presiding judge Lord Inglis sentenced him to death. He did come clean in the 21-day lead-up to his execution, and by the time he stood in front of hangman William Calcraft on July the 26th, 1865, at Jail Square, Glasgow, in front of up to 100,000 people, Pritchard had made his peace with God, and at 8:10 a.m. the bolt was pulled from the trapdoor and Pritchard dropped. but he died hard, Calcraft going down under the trapdoor to hang onto the doctor's legs as he strangled slowly. Calcraft was known for his short rope technique, which didn't always break the neck of the condemned, but gave Calcraft, ever the showman, the opportunity to show off to the crowd by swinging or hanging off the prisoner. Not many tears were shed for the human crocodile, who could turn the tears on whenever he wished, but it did cause all executions in Scotland after this to be behind closed doors. So that's it. I hope you found that of some interest, and to all those who can't stand to hear any more of my voice, including Trev, sleep well, see you next time, and to the remaining Murder at Bedtime masochist, where shall I start? Let's start with the stark naked man who walked past me on a packed promenade at the seaside town of Hastings just before I did my episode on the Hastings True Crime Museum, which was brilliant. If ever you are in Hastings, give it a visit. Anyway, back to this fine figure of a man, not strictly stark naked because he had his underpants around his neck. I saw him walking, but other people noted that they saw him earlier in the day and then he was riding a bike. My abiding memory of it all would be the very young lad walking with his family, suddenly pointing and shouting, "Look, mummy, that man's got his winky out." Now, weird things seem to follow me around. If anyone has seen my video about the Mersey Water Tower on my other channel, The Exiled Yellowbelly, you will have seen me and the Demon Hedge Cutter outtakes. This heat has been a killer, hasn't it, in the UK? It's been nearly 40 degrees in my work. Horrible. Hope we get some rain soon. Anyway, not much to report this week. If you like what you have just watched, please give me a thumbs up and like and subscribe. It's free and apparently it helps the channel out. And hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye for now.